Hey guys, I'm here at Portland Meadows poker room, closest poker room to where I'm staying for my trip here out in Portland, Oregon. So excited to get some cards in the air, get some action. It's about 11 at night, so they close at 2. Last 3 hours of action. We'll see, trying to jump into some 2-5, or if not, some 1-3 games and see how it goes. Good luck us. We sit down right away at a 1-3 table. It's a 1-3 game that is playing as a 1-3-6 with a mandatory under the gun straddle. There are multiple pots over $3,000 at the table. We buy in for $500 and we sit down ready to go to battle. For our first interesting hand of the night, we are in the hijack with 7-8 of hearts. We're playing 6-handed, so there's a low jack straddle on for 6. We make it $20 to go. Cutoff next to act calls with a pretty big stack. He has almost as much as this stack at the top of the screen. I mean, just look at that, over $4,000, a lot of money on this table. The straddle's also going to complete, so we go 3 ways to a flop with $64 in the middle, which comes out ace 9-3 with 2 hearts. We have a flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. On the surface, this might look like a good board to bet with the ace out there, but solver's actually checking almost 100% of range here. I think checking is pretty good here out of position because the cutoff is going to stab a lot. So not only do we get a lot of information by his bet size and also the straddles action, but we also get to play a little defensively to keep pots smaller out of position. However, I don't choose to keep this pot small. I actually go for a check raise. I think he's stabbing way too wide here. And we're right, as he pretty much snap folds. We get to take down the first pot of the night, uncontested, with 8 high. Our next spot is a pretty similar one. We peel king 10 of diamonds in the hijack. There's a $6 straddle on again. We raise it up to $20 with 40% of a royal flush. The big blind and the straddle are both going to defend, so we're going 3 ways in position to a flop with $64 in the middle, which comes out great for our range. It's ace of hearts, queen of hearts, deuce of spades. They're both going to check it over to me. Heads up against one of them, I might go and play an overbet or check strategy, implementing this king 10 off gut shot as one of my overbet bluffs, but 3 ways. I think we're just always betting smaller sizes here because equities tend to run closer 3 ways. I go for the 1/3 pot bet of $20. Big blind folds, straddle calls. There's $100 in the pot as the turn is the 10 of spades. Presents a backdoor spade draw and gives us 3rd pair. Straddle checks over to us. Our hand has picked up some showdown value against some of his draws. I decide to check to see a river, which is the blank 5 of clubs. All the draws have missed, and now the straddle checks it over for a 3rd time. When he checks, this kind of signifies some showdown value. I kind of go for this kind of mergy bet for $45. I don't love this. I think a check back works fine. But we're going to put this bet out to target non-believing under pairs when the front door hearts miss, to call, and maybe a hand like queen X of spades to fold. That's better than ours, but I think a check back is probably better. Nevertheless, he snap mucks, and we're going to rake in our 2nd straight pot. This next one is a pretty interesting one. It is now our turn to put on the $6 straddle. The whole table was doing it, and my mom always said, if your friends are all doing it, then you probably should too. The button decides to limp the straddle, as does the big blind player. We peel king 7 offsuit and decide to check it back. I think it's not good enough to raise for value and probably slightly too good to isolate as a bluff, so we decide to see a flop, which comes 7, 9, 10, two-tone. We make a pair on a pretty wet board. Checks over to the button, who bets out for $20. I'm actually a little surprised how often we are supposed to be folding here with some showdown value. We call, looking to improve on the turn, and that's exactly what we do. When we peel off the 7 of clubs, we have a sneaky 3 of a kind. I check it over to the button once again, and he goes for the old same bet of $20. Now in game, I read this $20 bet as fairly weak. I think with a lot of his draws, he's just going to be checking back. So when he bets this size, I don't think he'll have any thick value. Most likely, he'll have some weak 10x. So I decided to put maximum pressure on those holdings, as I am going to do with a lot of my bluffs. I decided to go for the check raise up to $75. The button might have a draw, possibly a combo draw after all, because he pretty quickly calls, so we're heads up to a river in a pretty large pot, hoping to see no hearts or clubs, unless of course the river is the king of clubs. We make a backdoor full house. When we make strong hands that are disguised, I typically like to go big for value. Our opponent has about $350 left behind. I decide to apply max pressure and go for the overbet jam, about 1.6x times pot, targeting the top of his range like straights or backdoor flushes. Maybe if he has a 2 pair like 10-9, or if he ran into a king 10 type of hand. trying to get paid off by those. Important to note, we can balance here with some hands like 9x of hearts, or with some underpairs, preferably without a heart, but with a club for some blocking effects. Regardless, he folds pretty quickly, maybe a bit too greedy on the river, but our stack is climbing up near the $1,000 mark. I wasn't aware until I sat down that Portland Meadows and apparently the entire Portland poker scene like to play a lot of mixed games. So while this is mostly a no-limit hold'em table, about once per orbit, they play a 5-card Omaha game. So bear with me while I try and explain the rules. There is a bomb figurine that goes around counterclockwise each time one of these hands are played. And when the dealer button lines up with this bomb, the player on the button can choose to play a bomb pot. This particular version they call a lockout, in which the button posts a blind $25. No other players are required to post. Each player is then dealt 5 cards, and action starts clockwise from the small blind. Players can either choose to call the $25 or fold. Note that they cannot raise yet. Once action is completed, the $25 from the button is treated as a straddle, meaning they have the option to check and see a flop or to raise. Once that action has been taken, betting rounds continue normally, and betting is no limit. This is a single board game, and players must use exactly 2 out of their 5 cards at Showdown. I am by no means an expert in Omaha games, so please let me know in the comments whether I played it well or poorly. I'm genuinely curious about your feedback. We find ourselves on the button for this hand with Ace 6, 10, 9, 3, 2 hearts, and 2 clubs. Definitely not good enough to be raising, but I guess at least we have the draw to the nut flush. So we check it back 3 ways to a flop with $75 in the middle, which is pretty good for our hand. It's ace, jack 10. We make top and bottom pair as well as the nut flush draw. I'm not even sure that our 2 pair is good, especially not when the big blind reaches into a stack, grabs 4 chips, and leads for $40. The low jack decides he likes to put 4 chips into this pot as well, but they're not calling chips. He min clicks it up to $80. When this happens, I'm not so confident our 2 pair is best right now, but again, with a draw to the nuts and maybe even some full house outs, I don't know if we can be folding just yet. It's a little tricky with the big blind still left to act behind and this being no limit post flop, but I'm just trying to take it one decision at a time. I call the $80. The big blind seems to have a pretty tough decision. It's pretty hard to hand read in Omaha, and I'm not feeling super confident if he goes back over the top. He's trying to get inventory of everyone's chips, and when he asked this, I guess it means his hand is weighted more towards draws because he's trying to see his implied odds, but still not feeling very confident. I'm feeling a little bit more confident when he decides to fold. We get to play a pot heads up that's already ballooning. The dealer puts out the king of clubs on the turn, not a great card. A lot of straights get there, but it does present a backdoor club draw, which I guess we have. The low jack bets out for 75. Again, the size is too small for me to fold, I think, especially with the draw to the nuts. If I just had naked 2 pair here, I'm definitely folding, but with the heart draw, and for this size, I don't think we can go away just yet. We call, hoping to make our flush on the river, and we do, but it's the 6 of clubs, meaning we make the backdoor flush. So a bit of a weird spot. We have the 3rd nuts here, the queen high flush and jack high flush obviously beating us. So hoping to just see a check so we could check this one back and take our showdown value, but the low jack does not oblige. He bets for half pot $210, and I honestly have no idea what to do in this spot. I guess it is possible for the low jack to have a hand like king queen with queen high clubs, or a set of jacks with a jack high club draw that is now betting for value on the river. This half pot size really has me in the blender. I'm not sure what to do. I don't play a lot of Omaha, so hand reading here is pretty tricky for me, but I feel like I'm pretty high up in my range maybe with how I played the last 2 streets just calling. I ultimately decide it's less likely he has a flush because I'm holding 3 clubs and not only 2. Also, I don't know if you could see at the top of your screen, but he's holding 2 cards off to the side, so it looks like he's ready to table his hand very quickly when I call. I've been paying attention in another lockout hand in which he played where he was very strong and he didn't do this maneuver. So the fact that we have 3 clubs and kind of trying to use a bit of a live read here, I decide my hand is too disguised. I put in the call and he says,
miss most jack clubs.
Thanks, man. He says he missed and tells us nice hand. I tried to get a shot of his cards. He actually was bluffing with the queen high heart draw. So he had a flush draw on the flop. I guess he was trying to represent the straight on the turn and just turn it into a half pot size bluff on the river. His bluff probably would have worked if I got to the river with 2 pair, so credit to him for going for it. I'm honestly not sure if this is a good call or a bit of a punt. It was a pretty uncomfortable spot, but our stack climbs to over $1,300. Now let's get back to some 2-card poker hands.
Discipline that you're
Discipline? I started as an aerospace engineer, but I'm doing physics. I'm doing physics now.
Huh?
I'm doing physics.
Yeah.
How poetic is it that we're just talking about our time as an aerospace engineering student when we pick up the rockets in the $6 straddle? Remember, kids, the poker gods reward you for straddling, so throw in the extra 2 big blinds. You will pick up big hands. The button raises to 20 off of a relatively short stack. We're of course 3-betting the best hand in poker. We decide to go 4x and make it $80. I chose this fairly big size because I was hoping that he would just sort of ship his stack in. He was relatively short for the game, by no means short for a 1-3 game, but this table is uber deep as you guys can see. Eventually he flicks in the call, so we're heads up in a 3-bet pot with 164 in the middle, which comes out fairly good for our hand. It's King 10-6. I only expect to be beat by pocket 10s here. You can see that pocket aces mixes between a variety of bet sizes here. I decided to go fairly small in game, hoping to keep his hands in like pocket jacks, pocket queens, and he pretty quickly makes the call. We're looking to stack a hand like ace king here. That is until the turn is a repeat king of spades. Presents a backdoor flush draw, which I never expect him to have, but now we are losing to hands like king queen and ace king. We decide to check here. We're more often betting here, but we check it over, and the button decides to go all in. In game, I didn't realize how little the button had behind. This is only a $90 shove into a pot that if I were to call would be $450, so I don't think I could ever really fold. I hadn't seen the button get involved in many hands, and that's the reason for the nit roll, but I apologize for this. This is pretty nitty, but once I get a count and realize it's only 90 more for me to call, I really can't fold. If he has ace king, nice hand, we'll only have 1 out to improve on the river. We flick the money in, hoping to see an ace or a blank, and the river is a pretty relative blank. It comes the 6 of clubs. The button fast rolls over pocket queens, and those are no good.
Sam finally calls.
No, I beat that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my God.
See, I'm so bad.
Wow.
Bit of a nit roll. Pretty surprised we didn't just get all the money in pre-flop with how short the button player was. But despite the nit roll, we're going to be scooping a pot of over $450.
And Sam, I've got something for you. For your crimes that you committed against Lily, you're now officially awarded the nit roll.
This next hand is a little bit crazy. We're in the big blind with pocket queens. There's an under the gun straddle for $6. The hijack is raised up to $15. The cutoff 3-bet to $60, and the small blind has cold called off of a fairly short stack. With pocket queens, we're of course going to be putting in the 4-bet here. Optimally, we prefer a size of around 4x, but in game, I decided to actually just click this to $130. I think players at this game are 3-betting a range that is far too narrow, which probably means that we don't have a ton of fold equity. And while typically you'd like to raise larger out of position to try to drive players out, I don't think people are folding. So with that in mind, I make it a bit small because I think players are fairly inelastic here when they 3-bet, meaning that they're always just going to call a 4-bet regardless of size. So we choose the smaller size, the cutoff calls, and the small blind does something I definitely wasn't expecting. He calls with only about $85 remaining. So we're 3 ways in a 4-bet pot. I'm not sure if I'm going to feel comfortable unless we make a set. And the flop comes out pretty much the worst we could ask for. It's ace jack 10 rainbow. Even though we pick up a gut shot, I can't think of a single hand we're beating. In equilibrium, heads up, we're range betting this board for a small size, but again, we lose to jacks and 10s and ace king. Of course, king still, so we check it through. On the repeat ace of hearts, this board is also going to be checked through to the river. Not sure what's going on here, especially not when the small blind decides to lead ship the deuce of spades river for $85. Super uncomfortable spot playing in the middle of these 2 players. I'm not quite sure what to do with a player left to act behind, but I'm just trying to take it one decision at a time. The price is way too good to fold, even though if the cutoff player behind me raises, I might throw up on the table. I cut out $85 to make the call. Fortunately, he snap folds, and then the small blind says this.
That didn't work.
You gonna beat?
No. Yeah.
The small blind lets us know that what seems like a suicidal bluff attempt didn't get through. The small blind leaves me wondering what he could have possibly bluffed with, but the player to our left is asking far more important questions.
Julian, thank you.
Yeah.
No, Kendrick or Drake? Tomorrow, Drake.
You guys let me know in the comments which rap legend you prefer. I'm personally going to stay out of it as I am very close with both Kendrick and Drake, evidenced by the fact that neither of them have ever dropped a diss track against me. But I'm just glad that the small blind was not like us and he dropped and gave me 50 on the river. Well, I guess he gave me 85. Regardless, our stack climbs up near the $2,000 mark. For this next hand, we're playing another lockout pot. We are in the big blind, and we decide to call the $25 straddle with ace, ace, jack, jack, 6 double suited. Again, you cannot raise unless you were the button pre-flop. So we call the 25. Pretty sure this is a good enough hand to VPIP. And when the button raises it up to $100 and action is now no limit, I think it's a good enough hand to go ahead and raise again. If you treat the $25 as a blind, we start the hand with about 1850. It's around 75 big blinds. So we're gonna make the re-raise up to 250. I guess we would be fine getting it in with the button with aces and jacks double suited, but we're gonna go heads up to a flop when he calls with over $500 in the middle, and the flop is gross. It's king, queen, 6, all diamonds. I check it over to the button. I honestly think I'm just done with the hand, and we are especially done when the button player thinks for a while and decides to put out all of his black chips covering us. It's a 3x overbet for about 1,500, and you can hear that I don't love it. I don't know how to play this game. I think I was supposed to raise pre-flop, but I don't know, man. I take it. Nice hand. You can see we made a good fold when the button shows us the 5 deuce of diamonds. I'm honestly not sure what other 3 cards he could have had. Maybe he just has like a lower wrap with a double flush draw or something like that. This game is really tough. Equities run so close and hand reading is so difficult. After losing this hand, we're up stuck a bit and a little bit tilted. It's late. We decide it's time to rack up and book the win. That's gonna wrap up our session. We were in for $500, out for $1,500, so a nice juicy profit on the day. Honestly, just a really good game. Fairly soft. Like I said, the straddle was on, so it was playing pretty big. And I just ran really well, played well, I think, too. And I don't know if I can remember a hand of Hold'em where I put money in after the flop in which we didn't drag the pot. So just kind of everything going our way, except for those Omaha hands. Honestly, guys, please let me know in the comments where I can improve my Omaha game. I have no idea what I'm doing out there with 4 cards, let alone with 5, but pretty cool dedication to the mixed games out there in Portland. People were very nice, friendly environment. Something I didn't mention, I think, before is that you paid $20 at the door for your rake. So that was pretty cool as well. Overall, really good session. I think it made for a good video, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you didn't notice already, all the background music in this video are covers either by myself or by some friends of music from Portland-based artists. So Portland, Oregon has a really cool music scene, and that's one of the things that makes Portland such a cool city to visit. If you haven't been out there already, I highly recommend it. Highly walkable, highly lush, kind of vibrant downtown area. You can walk everywhere, people are very nice. So if you haven't been out, I recommend you make the trip, and the poker rooms are some pretty nice action as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to leave a comment below. I'm more than happy to get back to you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.